That morning, Silas woke with the kind of excitement only a 7-year-old can carry. His smile stretched ear to ear as he held up the glittery birthday card he'd made for his mom. Stickers crooked, his name wobbling across the page in that adorable handwriting that always made my chest ache. "She's going to love this," he said, proud like he'd crafted something priceless. And in his eyes, he had. 1 hour, I told him. That's all we'd stay. The lake house stood, like a ghost from a life that wasn't mine anymore. 3 years ago, Maya and I stood in that same kitchen, paint samples in one hand, wine glasses in the other, imagining growing old by the stone fireplace. Now the place looked like a magazine spread, soft blues, golds, curated perfection. Only, it wasn't ours anymore. It was hers, theirs. Roman, her new man, had stepped in before the ink on the divorce papers had dried. I parked 2 blocks away. Couldn't bring myself to pull into the driveway. Silas clutched the card as we walked up the gravel path. I tried not to look around, but the memories clung to the cedar and stone. The front door opened before we knocked. Eloise, her mother. Chin tilted, eyes sharp. "Well," she drawled, eyeing me like I tracked mud across her silk rugs. Didn't expect the help to deliver in person. Silas flinched. I squeezed his shoulder. "We won't stay long." Then Roman appeared, champagne flute in hand, smile smug and tailored like the button-down he wore. "Lost, are we?" he said, laughing just enough for everyone to hear, even Maya. Silas's fingers curled tighter around mine. I knelt beside him. "You want to give her the card?" He nodded. Maya saw us. Her eyes widened for a heartbeat before she forced a smile. "Hi, baby," she said, kneeling. "You came." Silas held out the card. "I made it all by myself." "I can tell," she said. "It's beautiful." I stepped back, just enough to give them space, not enough to be forgotten. That's when I saw it. Eloise whispering behind her glass, Roman laughing, like I was the joke they wrote together. I turned to leave. I'd seen enough. But Silas didn't move. He was staring toward the hallway, the one leading to the study. His face had gone pale. "Dad," he whispered, "we need to leave. Something's wrong." I crouched again. "What did you see?" He shook his head. "Not see. Hear. They said your name. I don't like it here." The room hadn't changed. Cake still glimmered. Music still played. But the air, it felt thick now. Heavy with something else. My instincts kicked in. I scanned exits, watched Roman's posture shift, amusement fading into calculation. I nodded. "Let's go." Silas didn't ask why. He walked fast, his small hand in mine, his steps sharp with urgency. "You're not staying for the photos?" Maya called after us. I didn't turn. This is the last place he should feel afraid. No one stopped us. They just let us go, laughter fading behind us like static from a dying signal. At the car, Silas climbed into the back without a word. I scanned the street. Nothing obvious. But the feeling remained, taut, electric. Halfway down the road, I finally spoke. "You okay?" He didn't answer, just held the card, his hum soft and off-key. Then I saw it. A black SUV, 2 cars back, too clean, too controlled. It wasn't a coincidence. 10 years in personal security teaches you to spot a tail before your first cup of coffee. This one wasn't random. This was surveillance, or worse. "Hey, buddy," I said, keeping my tone light. "Want to play a game?" He glanced up. "A game?" "Yeah, top secret spy stuff. You're the mission. Hide behind the seat, no peeking. Can you do that?" He nodded. "You're the most important mission," I said, turning without signaling, slipping into the back roads where I knew every detour like muscle memory. We looped twice, then a third time. That SUV stayed 3 cars back. Not random, not accidental. I pulled into an underground garage beneath Jackson Ford's law office. Jackson wasn't just a lawyer, he was ex-ops, one of the only men I trusted to vanish someone clean. I killed the engine. "Stay here," I told Silas. He nodded. Inside the garage, behind concrete columns and flickering lights, we hid. Silas sat cross-legged on the floor. "They were in the study," he whispered. "Roman and a man with a scar. Big guy. Mean. They said you don't even know we've been watching." I froze. Loose ends. That's what they called me. They weren't watching because of Maya. They were watching because I was a variable they hadn't contained. Later that night, a message hit my burner phone. No name, just a sentence. "Autopsy says defensive wounds. Be careful. You're next. Danny Linwood. Official cause of death. Suicide." But she was strong, stubborn, a gymnast. I knew better, and now I knew what they were willing to do to keep their secrets. They came after me. They watched my son. They made one mistake. They didn't finish the job. I sat down hard, nausea rising in my throat. She planned it. She planned all of it, I murmured at 11:17 p.m. There were details, horrible, intimate details, about my life insurance payout, dates, numbers, intent. She had printed the beneficiary change form, hadn't submitted it yet, but she was going to. She was going to kill me, I said aloud, the horror hitting in full force. And if she was, he hadn't said no. Jared stood stunned near the door. Mara's voice cut through the silence, low and grave. "She still might try." "We need to go," Jared said. "Now. This isn't just adultery. This is attempted murder." We left everything except the journal. I took it. Not to hide it, but to deliver it. This wasn't just a tangled web anymore. This was a trap, and she was the spider in the center. We left Meadowview with the journal wrapped in Jared's old flannel, like it was a weapon. In many ways, it was. My hands trembled the entire drive to the hospital, not from fear, not even from rage, from something colder, realization. I had been living beside a stranger, sleeping next to a woman who had outlined my death in neat handwriting and blue ink. She hadn't just betrayed me, she had calculated my erasure, like a formula, and I almost missed it. By the time we reached the parking lot, Mara had already called Sheriff Grant Maddox. "You don't bring a knife to a sniper fight," she said, "and Miranda's been practicing her aim for a while." The sheriff met us at the side entrance, flanked by a young deputy with old eyes. I handed Grant the journal without a word. He flipped through the pages slowly. He didn't blink, not even when he reached the line. "If Zoe doesn't go along with it, we may need another plan." He snapped it shut. "I need to be careful with this. Can I log it?" "Yes," I said, "but not before I get a full scan, every page. I'm not letting this disappear into some evidence vault." "Fair enough," Grant said. "We'll make a copy. I'll assign someone to protect Zoe." That struck something deep in me. Protect Zoe. How had I let it get this far? The next morning, after a sleepless night filled with pacing and dread, I drove back to Meadowview, alone. I needed to see it again in daylight, to burn every inch into memory. This house wasn't just where she lied. It was where she reinvented herself. The woman I knew didn't live here. Another woman did. And she had dragged our daughter into that fiction like a stage prop. The house sat quiet in the dawn light, haloed by dew-soaked grass and the perfume of magnolia. I unlocked the door slowly this time, reverently. I didn't touch a thing. I just walked. In the kitchen, 2 wine glasses drying by the sink, an open bottle of Merlot, a red silky scarf draped over a stool, one I remembered from church. She'd taken it from our home. She didn't even bother hiding it anymore. Down the hall, framed photos lined the walls. Miranda and Lance, smiling in front of landmarks I once believed were memories with her mother. She used my money to build that false life. My home to fund her betrayal. My name to feed her secrets. In the bedroom, the bed was too neatly made. The end table drawer was slightly ajar. I reached in, expecting receipts or maybe a burner phone. Instead, photos. Dozens of them. Miranda with Zoe. Miranda with Lance. And many, far too many of just Zoe. Different outfits, different poses, all taken in this house, without my knowledge, without her real father. I stood frozen, one photo trembling in my hand. Zoe wore a lavender sundress I'd never seen. Her smile was forced. I could see it now. Through the lens, she wasn't happy. She was trapped. I opened a drawer under the bed, found a manila envelope. Inside, a signed beneficiary change form. A copy of my old Will 2 airline tickets under fake names. Departure, 2 weeks from now. Destination, Belize. They were going to run, probably after I was dead. I staggered back, photo in hand, bracing, against the nightstand. My knuckles whitened. This wasn't just betrayal. This was annihilation, planned like a business strategy. That's when I saw it. A small safe, half hidden behind a robe. I crouched and tried a few guesses. It clicked. Open on the 3rd, Zoe's birthday. Inside, 2 passports, a stack of cash, a flash drive labeled Final. I didn't touch another thing. I backed out, grabbed my phone, and called Grant. "You'll want to bring a team," I said, "and gloves." I stood on the porch, still holding that photo of Zoe in the lavender dress. That image kept me grounded. Her face, her courage, her refusal to lie, even when it scared her. When the sheriff arrived, I handed him the evidence, like pieces of a bomb. Because that's what this house was, a detonation site. After they bagged everything, Grant turned to me. "How'd you find this place?" "Wrong key in the right hands," I said. He nodded. "You did good, Silas." Most men wouldn't have put it together this fast. I didn't respond. I just looked at the picture one more time before giving it up. Zoe's face never changed. She was still there, still waiting to come home. This house was built for secrets. But now it was evidence, and it was no longer hers to hide in. The morning Zoe opened her eyes, I forgot how to breathe. I'd been sitting beside her bed for nearly 3 days, watching every flicker of her eyelids, every rise and fall of her chest like scripture. I hadn't slept, barely ate. The monitor's beeps and IV drips became the soundtrack to my unraveling. I was half listening to Mara discuss new information when Zoe's fingers twitched in mine. Tiny, almost imperceptible. Then, her lips parted. "Dad." I was on my feet before the word finished forming. "Zoe," I breathed, clutching her hand. "I'm here. I'm right here." Her gaze was slow to focus, like she was waking underwater. Then, recognition. Her fingers squeezed mine, barely, but it broke me. I bent down, kissed her forehead, my throat thick with emotion. "Where am I?" she whispered. "You're in the hospital," I said. "But you're okay now. You're safe." Her eyes drifted to the machines, then back to me. "My head hurts." "I know, sweetheart. They gave you medicine. Just rest, okay? You don't have to say anything yet." She nodded, then her eyes sharpened again. "Is Mom here?" The question stabbed like glass. I shook my head. "No, just me." She relaxed slightly. Then the tears came. "I didn't do anything wrong," she whispered. "I promise." "I didn't." "You didn't," I said, voice breaking. "Zoe, you didn't do anything wrong." I looked to Mara and nodded. She slipped out, leaving us in silence. Only the hum of machines remained. "I wanted to tell you before," Zoe whispered. Her voice was raspy. "But she said if I did, we'd be in trouble. She said you'd go to jail." I knelt beside the hospital bed, heart splintering at her words. Zoe, I would never hurt you. Ever. None of this is your fault. Do you hear me? She told me to say you hit me, that you yelled, that you scared me. Her voice cracked. But it wasn't true. It was never true. I squeezed her, hand gently anchoring her in the truth. I told her I didn't want to lie, she whispered. And then Lance, he got mad. Lance, I said, careful not to let his name twist with the fury it stirred in me. What happened? They argued. He said I was the problem, that if I just did what they said, everything would be easier. Then Mom gave me orange juice. It tasted weird, bitter. My blood chilled. I asked her why, and she said I needed to sleep a long time so things could happen faster. She said you were going away. What things? She said they were changing everything. But I didn't want you to go. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Then I got dizzy. I couldn't stay awake. You were brave, I said, my voice steady. Telling me now that's what saved us. She said it'd be your fault if I didn't help her, that we'd lose the house, but I didn't believe her. I didn't. You were right not to, and you'll never have to be scared of her again. I promise. She looked at me with wet, searching eyes, then her voice barely a whisper. Do you still love her? That one hit harder than anything else. I thought of Miranda, not just who she was now, but who she'd once been. The laughter before the lies, the years before the masks. And then I said, I don't know if I ever really knew her, but I know this. I love you more than anything in the world. That seemed to settle something in her. A knock at the door. Grant stepped in. She ready to talk? He asked. Zoe nodded, braver than any adult I'd ever known. Sheriff Maddox sat gently on the bed. Zoe, I'm here to listen. You're not in trouble. You're helping people. And she did. She told him everything. The lies, the juice, the threats, Lance's temper, Miranda's promises, the plan to make me look like the monster. She didn't cry. She just told the truth, clean, painful, unshakable. When she finished, Grant gave a solemn nod. That was all we needed. Later in the hallway, I stood with Grant and his team. She's going to come back, I told them. She'll say Zoe's confused, that I manipulated her. That's why we're sealing contact, Grant said. As of noon, Miranda has no legal access to her daughter. And Lance? Still no trace, he said, but we're running facial recognition from the photos. That's when Jared walked in, a stack of documents in his hands and a fire in his eyes. Got him. Real name's Darren Locke, multiple identities, fraud charges in 3 states, all mysteriously dropped. Targets vulnerable women with assets. Miranda wasn't his first. We laid everything out in a hospital conference room. Mara flipped through the files like a lawyer prepping for trial. This guy's a predator, she muttered. He doesn't just con, he consumes. He picked the wrong girl, I said, and the wrong father. We worked fast. Jared compiled digital receipts. Grant traced property transactions. I sat with Zoe, helping her prepare for what came next. She was scared, but stronger than I'd ever known.